Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is March 2nd, 2020. And as always, I am very excited to be with you today for another fascinating, interesting Mormon Stories Podcast interview. Today, we have a real treat for you. We're interviewing someone named Anastasia Bigun. She is from Ukraine, which is a country in Eastern Europe, used to be part of the Soviet Union, is a country of much interest in the news these days in terms of kind of geopolitical stuff. But it's also an area where Mormon missionaries have been sent for many, many years. Anastasia is 33. Is that right? She lives here in Salt Lake City, and we are going to be covering several interesting topics today. So we're going to learn a little bit about Ukraine, its relationship to the Soviet Union, and to Russia. We're going to learn about kind of the Mormon missionary efforts in Ukraine, as much as Anastasia knows or wants to share about that kind of stuff. Then we're going to talk about how she and her mother joined the church. Turns out that she and her mom met the Mormon missionaries in Ukraine when she was 10, but her dad didn't let her join the church till she was 18, so her mom joined, and then she waited until 8 years, until she was 18 to join, and then eventually she came here to the United States and ended up at BYU-Idaho, and she works in software, in programming, and she's super cool. So we'll talk about her faith journey as well. And we'll end by talking about Ukraine and the United States and kind of modern political stuff, hopefully in a way that won't offend Democrats or Republicans, but that just kind of, or Russians or Ukrainians, but that just gives a kind of lay of the land of her views on kind of what's going on in politics, hopefully without being too political. So it's going to be an exciting interview. And Anastasia, welcome to Mormon Stories Podcast.
Thank you so much. This is very Joe Rogan. You mentioned this at the Lila interview. And I was excited to see, and I love Joe Rogan. And this really does I feel like you need some figurines around here. He has a lot of stuff on the wall and on the.
We're supposed to have some figurines up here behind me.
Yeah. But this is great.
Well, cool. Good. Well, I'm glad. Speaking of Lila, I should just tell the audience that Anastasia is single, and in the interview with Lila Tuller, which has been a really important interview for the past few months, at the end, because Lila's also single, we had Lila share what she's looking for in a partner, and Anastasia, you asked that we do that up front.
Correct.
So without getting too much into it, Anastasia is now going to let the world know, the Mormon podcast world know, really quickly what she's looking for in a partner.
Yeah. So I wanted to cover it right away because I don't want people to wait until the end. What if you get too bored and then you're done and you don't want to hear this? But single. I really value integrity because for me, a lot of things stem from integrity. Things like honesty, things like self-awareness, respect for others people as well as yourself. So that's a big thing for me. Kindness, all those things, but integrity, I think, is what I'm looking for. And physically, I am 5'9". That's a big deal.
So tall?
I really do prefer people 6'1" and up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tall guy, integrity, age?
Actually, don't care at all.
Don't care about age.
I have dated both ways, huge age differences both ways. And it just depends on the person. It works out very well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if any of you meet those criteria, Anastasia's on Facebook. Her last name, even though it's pronounced Bigun, or at least that's how I pronounce it, it's spelled Bigun. So Anastasia, probably Bigun is probably how it's pronounced.
Most people will say Bigun.
Yeah. But that doesn't sound good. Okay. All right. So let's start with a little bit of a geopolitical history lesson. I was a political science major, so I
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, you were?
I started with political science and then I transferred to software engineering. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I became a computer programmer after being a political science major.
There you go.
But I grew up kind of at the end of the Cold War. So I grew up, the Ronald Reagan and the Soviet Union, USSR, and, I think the Berlin Wall came down while I was on my mission in Guatemala.
Okay.
So so I think I probably have a little bit slightly better understanding about geopolitical things than maybe the average U.S. person. So hopefully, and maybe I'm wrong, but we're going to I'm going to ask you just a couple questions about kind of the history of Ukraine to the extent that you know it.
Yeah, let's try.
Okay. So, I know that Ukraine was part of the USSR prior to the breakup of the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union kind of controlled a bunch of countries in Eastern Europe. And then the wall comes down and, Russia becomes its own country, and then all these other countries get independence. What can you tell us about, do you have any thoughts or just, a quick overview of your country's history? And I know this is a lot in just a little bit of time, but tell us what we need to know about Ukraine.
Okay. So as far as I remember, the wall came down in 89?
Yeah.
Okay, I was 3 years old. So I was born in 86. And
do you have a sense for what life what was Ukraine like? Do you know before it joined the USSR or was forced into the USSR? Like, does your country have kind of some high level history points of just like its origins or,
Right. Let me think. So, so I'll start with the USSR situation. From my perspective, it looked like the wall coming down, it was more like other countries finally realized they had enough stamina to leave USSR. It wasn't Russia becoming its own country, if that makes sense.
Right.
It was more like them breaking apart. And so 91 is when Ukraine became independent. And 91 is when Ukraine felt like we're ready. And we were following someone else's lead. I actually don't remember who was the first country, but it was a little more west, I think.
Poland, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, somebody there. So we followed somebody else's lead.
But did you ever grow up hearing anything about like what it was like in Ukraine prior to the Soviet Union's involvement?
Oh, yeah, because I actually did 2 years of linguistics in Ukraine, and that involved a lot of history. And we learned a lot of our own history in school. We are a very ancient civilization. So we come from, we're back to myths and different gods of sun and water or whatever. So, thousands of years. And we, Christianity, we were introduced to Christianity around the same time as it was introduced to like the Southern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like, I'm going to butcher it, but let's say 1,000 something BC. Right. And
BC or AD?
Sorry, yeah, that's what I'm butchering, AD.
Okay. So that's pretty early.
Oh, yeah, we were like, the wave hit us pretty early because we're so close to Turkey. Like, we're right across the sea. So we just kind of got that. And at the time, we already had monarchs, kings that were very influential and connected to all the other, like, Persian empires and, Greek empires, all of those. We were all interconnected. And so if something was happening with them, it was happening to us as well.
Okay.
So yeah, we got Christianity. It's an interesting story. There's a myth about how we got baptized into it. And we were forced into Christianity. And those people who didn't want to get baptized were thrown off of cliffs into rivers. And all of our gods, the depictions of gods were thrown into water. So it was a rough moment in history. But I grew up knowing that my parents come from a culture of Orthodox religion without actually practicing because of the ban of the USSR.
So would it be Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox?
I think we started with Greek Orthodox, but we're like Ukrainian Orthodox is what we call ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, we have our own branch.
So your ancestors would have been Orthodox Christian.
Definitely.
Until the Soviet Union. Kind of came to be in the Bolshevik Revolution. And then at some point, when would have Ukraine been absorbed into the USSR? Any idea? Around what year?
Oh, I think we were in for about 70 years, so early 1900s.
Okay, so like probably after World War I kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm floating in that. I don't know for sure.
That's fine. Okay, so how would you describe what you know about life under the Soviet Union for Ukraine?
Yeah, so this is my perspective. I actually remember standing in line, and I would be 5 years old, standing in line to get bread. My mom and dad always had jobs, and so we live in cities. It's not like here. Everything is really, really close. Like my school was 2 minutes away, and the grocery store is another 2 minutes away. Everything is like very like in the same spot.
What's the name of the town?
Mariupol.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
And where's Ukraine? Like if somebody's looking at a map, where's Ukraine?
Ukraine is right above Turkey, right under the Moscow, Russia, that part of Russia.
Okay.
And
so it's south of Russia.
Yeah, south of Russia.
North of Turkey.
And east of Poland.
East of Poland. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's considered Eastern Europe, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they speak
Ukrainian.
Okay.
And Russian.
Okay.
Yeah, we got both.
Okay.
So
so your town was called
Mariupol.
Was it a small town, teeny? How many people? Any idea?
I think 500,000.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was pretty much in the central part of the city. That's where I grew up, which is like really close to the little cultural spot, like Dramteatr, which is like where you go to the theater, like the main streets crossing, all of those things. So it's pretty close to that area.
And you're saying even though it's a decent-sized city, everything's close together, you're saying? Schools are close?
Right. So we predominantly live in apartments, which, and our schools, we don't, like here, our school will cover blocks and blocks and maybe even like half a town. Over in Ukraine, it will cover a block. So schools are everywhere. And like little shops are everywhere.
How tall are these apartments? How many stories?
9 to 12.
So it's kind of tall.
Yeah. Older ones would be 5 or 6, I think, like the ones built in like
So this idea of like idea of a big yard and a front yard and a backyard.
Not a thing. If you have a balcony, you're like, oh, I'm doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many rooms would have been in your house growing up?
Mine was considered a 3-bedroom.
Okay.
However, the interesting thing is we consider a living room a bedroom.
Okay.
So American standards, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, but our standards is a 3-bedroom.
And you probably wouldn't even be able to think about the conversion for square footage, like.
That's interesting. Let me think.
Sounds like 700 square feet. 700 square feet.
Yeah, okay. It's small. I have 2 sisters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so there were 5 of you?
Yeah, 5 in a family, which we were a big family. Always everyone told me like, oh, you come from a big family. Mm-hmm. And we all grew up in the same room. And I didn't know you can have your own room.
So you and your 2 sisters were all in the same room growing up?
Yep.
Okay.
We had a bunk bed and another bed and a table, a really long table to do homework, yeah.
What did your parents do for work?
So my dad, electrical engineering, and my mom worked at a hospital as I guess you can call it secretary. So she grew up in an area when she, you typist on what are those machines called?
Typewriter?
Yeah, typewriters, that's right. So she was a professional typewriter.
Okay.
And she was really good and sought out like a lot. She was very valued because she was incredibly fast and was really good at formatting documents. So yeah, that's what her job was.
And she's from Russia, is that right?
She's from St. Petersburg, yeah.
Okay, but your dad's?
My dad is Ukrainian. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they got married.
So my dad my dad is from a very small village in Ukraine, and he went to school in St. Petersburg, and they met on the bus stop. She was going to a concert, and he was in a uniform. He was in some kind of Navy-related, military-related school doing some engineering program, and so he still had to wear a uniform, so he was all tall and beautiful in a uniform and swept her off her feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were saying that like you had to wait in line for bread. I mean, that's a stereotype here in a country that kind of has historically favored capitalism. It's like, you don't want to be a communist because you have to wait in line for bread, you know?
Yeah.
But you're saying it really was that way.
Oh, yeah. This is really interesting. I remember you walk into a store, it's this enormous place, and it's empty. And only on certain days, certain times do you get products. And they're very specific. There's certain kinds of milk. And it's not like here, there's like, 1,000 different ways, different kinds of milk. No, it's like this one or two you can buy. And you knew when the bread was being done and being made, and you knew when it's being delivered. So you had to go there early enough to stand in line and wait for it. And I had to have exact change in cash and be very, very nervous because I was like 5, 6 years old and I didn't know if I have enough. I couldn't count. And I'd just be like, that one right there. Yeah. And it was like up to an hour in line. Yeah.
What else? How else would you describe the conditions?
My memory is a lot of gray colors, gray buildings, gray dark clothing. People don't smile. That was not a thing. Yeah, kind of like my feeling and my visual interpretation is a lot of grayness and no options. Yeah.
There's the stereotype that like there's always someone listening and watching, and you have to be careful what you say, and you can get thrown in jail if you say the wrong thing or say something that isn't patriotic or whatever. Is all that?
I was aware of it. I was told by my parents. However, I was never told it applied to me and it applied to our time. I was told that we're getting over that.
Okay.
And so I didn't feel
that
danger. Yeah.
How did you guys view the United States back early on?
My family particularly, I don't remember any negativity or positivity. I think we were pretty neutral.
It wasn't like they're the great Satan, kind of like we kind of did that to Russia. Like Russia is the bad guys. The USSR, the Soviet Union, they're the bad guys. We got to beat them in the Olympics, and they're trying to take over the world. So we've got to defend freedom and market capitalism, and over here there was a lot of feeling of like competition and maybe animosity.
I think I came right after that.
So you didn't.
And I definitely, I'm aware of it now that I know that happened and probably still happening. However, my family, somehow my mom and dad were always very progressive thinkers, and they never talked about anything black and white. It was always pretty, like you have to consider like other people's lives and opinions and this and that. So we never had any particular negative feelings towards anyone other than Russia because of the USSR.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were the rules, or what was the culture around religion that you're aware of back during the USSR days?
Don't do it.
Religion.
Don't talk about it. Don't do it. Like whatever you feel like, whatever faith you might have, you have to keep it to yourself. You can't even talk to friends about it. Like I know that my mom was talking about her family not ever discussing it because they were like the walls can hear us kind of situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's that perception that communism and atheism kind of go hand in hand, and that communism hates religion, that kind of thing. Is that, so you're saying that's kind of...
Definitely. Okay. I think religion requires some certain level of self-awareness that is very anti-Russian version of communism, because I can't hate on communism. Every country can do different things with it. And any idea is a good idea. It's the way it's implemented is But yeah, in the Soviet Union communism version, religion was too scary because it required self-awareness and thought. And that couldn't happen because it wouldn't sustain the regime of follow us blindly.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So that's actually surprising, because I think a lot of times here, especially kind of post-Mormons or maybe sometimes liberal progressive Mormons, kind of almost think of religion as synonymous with sometimes, and I'm not saying this is true, I'm just saying it's sometimes like, well, religion's authoritarian, religion is closed-minded, it doesn't encourage self-awareness or free thought. And you're saying that actually it was a step up from a totalitarian regime.
I think their regime was you worship whoever is in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it kind of made sense that to remove that competition of who people are looking up to and who they're following.
I see. So religion allows for any type of allegiance outside of the state.
Right.
And they didn't want that.
Right. And then the government doesn't have to worry about some kind of religious person like a pope. You don't have to fight with a pope as a monarch, right? For power. You can just remove the pope figure completely, and then you're left to do whatever you want.
Got it. Okay. So when the Soviet Union falls apart, late 80s, early 90s, and Ukraine gains its independence, what year?
91.
91. What's your understanding of how things changed?
We lost our money.
Okay.
My dad had
your family lost?
Yeah.
Okay.
My family had was comfortable. We were doing okay. My dad and mom actually had incredible opportunities working overseas. So we had savings. Every girl had some kind of money in the bank account for themselves.
Before the fall. Mm-hmm. So life was good.
Yeah,
like
we
in
were
spite
fine.
of everything we said, waiting in lines, but things were okay.
Yeah, we were comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, we were fine. We had an apartment, which was a big deal. We always had an apartment.
Well, then someone would say, well, then it was good. Communism was good. You were happy. You were comfortable.
I don't know. It seemed like my parents...
Were they happy? Were they content?
I don't think so, because by 1996, they were both ready to find something more. They were both contemplating religion in their own ways. And so I think
I just mean like if this, and we'll get off the Soviet Union now, but I'm just saying like, on the one hand, you mentioned breadlines and totalitarianism and anti-religion and that kind of stuff, but you're also saying you guys were comfortable.
Financially, yeah. I mean, financial
And that's the promise
stability.
of communism is that like everybody will have their needs taken care of. And you're saying your needs were taken care of.
I think so, yeah. I think we were doing okay.
So that it wasn't awful for you guys.
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if my parents ever said that it was horrible. I think my mom growing up, their living situation was really awful. But as for my parents getting married and then having kids,
They were kind of middle class.
We were fine. Yeah.
Educated, middle class, comfortable. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay,
Then
so the fall happens and then...
we lose all of the money.
Why?
So I think it's the currency just was devalued, and then the switching of banks and financial systems, all of that just screwed people over, and a lot of people went through this. And so we lost everything, and from then on we were poor, like really poor. And my dad still had a job, he never lost it, but the crazy thing is he didn't get paid for many years.
For years?
Yeah, like just did not get paid. So, yeah, that was tricky.
So, like, did your family eat?
So my mom had a job. My grandmother, who lived in Vinnytsia, Vinnytska Oblast, this is like central Ukraine, she always had a big garden, all the fruits and vegetables. So she would help us, and then mom would stock up on food and bottle food, like prepare for the winter. Like we'd do things like that. And I don't know how it worked, but we were definitely on some kind of social help system.
Food stamps or whatever.
Something, something was happening like that.
Welfare.
Yeah, I think so. So it was really, I know that my dad, there were times he didn't eat because his kids needed to eat. So that happened. So, yeah.
And as you're thinking back to your childhood during this time of poverty, were you happy or were you miserable? because sometimes kids can actually have a great time in tough circumstances, or it can be miserable. Or
I was both. I was miserable in the city because I was just very aware that I didn't have everything I needed, just like the basic things, like clothing and enough food. And like I didn't have lunches to take to school. I was always hungry. And then I also went and spent 3 months every summer at my grandma's, where I was happy because it was freedom from school. It was freedom from poverty. I didn't feel poor there. My grandma would like always buy me little things like shoes or like a dress, or. So I felt like I was like a little spoiled over there. And then she had plenty of food, and she was an amazing cook, and I had friends, and it was sun and summer. And so I feel like I idealized part of my childhood, and then there's part that was total crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Ukraine got its independence, did your parents immediately become kind of Orthodox religious again, or not? Or
not at all. I don't remember my parents talking about religion until Mormon missionaries came into our house.
Okay.
So,
do you have a sense when the church first started sending missionaries to Ukraine?
I actually asked my mom. So she said that officially we were organized, Mormon church was organized in 1991.
In
Ukraine.
Okay.
But I know the first missionaries had to come there before. They had to get like a sense of what's going on, if this is like a country to open.
Right.
So I'm sure it was like at least a year before that, at least. And then Mariupol specifically, the church was officially organized in 1996.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when actually my mother joined, is 1996.
So do you remember when the missionaries first kind of came knocking on your family's door?
Yeah, I think this is a fun story because it was my birthday, and then I think a day or two later, my parents went to another birthday at a friend's house, and me and my older sister were home, and they come back tipsy, and they say, oh, like we met some missionaries on our way home, and this is public transportation situation, ain't nobody's driving. So they're on the bus, and they were talking to some elders, and my dad is a really nice drunk. When he drinks, he's like ready to give love to everyone. So he saw these missionaries, and he was talking to them, and my mom was like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, blah, blah. So he just invited them, and she thought that was crazy because it's two males being invited to her house where she has two kids. They're girls. Like, it just sounded to her like a very dangerous situation. Nevertheless, Saturday at 10 a.m., two missionaries came over, and I think one of them was Ukrainian and one of them was American. And I was hiding because I got that tension feeling from my mom that she was very suspicious and she thought it was a dangerous situation. So I was hiding, and then I started like kind of hearing what they were talking about and like their voices, and I realized it's safe. So I like came out and like sat there and like looked and like, what's going on? Yeah.
And you were 10?
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
And was your family still poor at that time?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Okay. And so do you have a sense that your parents or your mom specifically had some core needs that weren't getting met that made her interested in missionaries?
No idea.
Okay, you don't know.
At that time, no clue.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So the missionaries come and you're scared, but you warm up.
Yeah. So they start coming every Saturday. And after that, my memory is pretty blurry. I just know that I was the first one to open the Book of Mormon. And I remember sitting in the kitchen and my mom was cooking and I opened and I started reading. And I think I went through like a couple chapters. And this is interesting. By 10 years old, I considered myself a reader. I already read so much and I was constantly reading something. So when I opened the book and I started reading, and I just told my mom, this is interesting. Like you should read it. That's what I said.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, really? Cool. Okay. And then she started reading the Book of Mormon. And then I didn't read it for many, many years after that.
Okay.
I stopped like those 2 chapters.
So how long did it take for her to get baptized?
I think 5 months. So this is end of October. and then 1996, and she gets baptized March 23rd, 1997. So it's about 5 months. It was her birthday when she got baptized.
Okay. And do you know how her conversion happened from her perspective? Like, was it the Spirit told her? Was it just she liked the ward? Just that she thought a Missionaries was cute? Like, there's different ways people get kind of converted.
Right.
Do you know?
I know it wasn't the cute Missionaries, for sure. I think she just actually believed in the gospel part of it, like the lessons.
The teaching. She liked the teaching.
Yeah, I think she legitimately was into it and really pondering and considering and realized that she would like to apply this to her life. But you have to realize in those 5 months, a lot of things happened. Like my family went from love, and even though we were poor, it's like still like my parents loved each other. It was like a safe environment. It went from that to my dad freaking out and becoming emotionally and physically abusive, saying horrible things, denying my mother the right to make her own choice to get baptized. I mean, it just turned into a complete nightmare very, very quickly. So by the time she was getting baptized, I didn't attend her baptism because I knew my dad was pissed. And I was still trying to figure out which side I'm on. And there was definitely a side to choose, for sure.
Do you have a sense for why your dad was angry or concerned?
I don't want to misrepresent him. However, I think he felt betrayed, maybe. He comes from Orthodox family, so he thought that they would both join Orthodox Church, maybe.
So even though his Orthodox practice would have been dormant, and because of the Soviet Union, he still retained that family belief and tradition that would have been passed on multi-generational, by the way.
Absolutely.
Even though they weren't practicing?
Well, so this is interesting. My grandma never really stopped going to church. I think in the villages, like people were kind of like...
Churches weren't destroyed or gotten rid of?
Not from what I saw, no.
Okay.
And so maybe my grandma at some point didn't go because she couldn't. But by the time I was born, she went to church regularly.
Okay.
And he was very well aware of the tradition in the family. And even by 1996, like they were both looking for something else. They both were like considering like what else can we fill our lives with. And I know that before they met Missionaries, they were both thinking about like what religion should we join? Like that was kind of like, should we join it and which one? Mm-hmm. And so then I think he had his expectations, and also you have to like, I have to consider that he comes from a misogynistic, chauvinistic place. Not his fault as a bad human being, but just how he's raised. And so I think for him, it was very strange and uncomfortable to see a woman not follow him where he's going and make her own decision. Oh. And my mom is an incredibly independent thinker and doer. And so I think that was, for him, a big blow that, well, also by then he was kind of broken. Think about it. Like he lost his job. He lost his ability to financially provide for his family. He lost all the money he made. He lost a lot of opportunities. And so he is already coming from this place of a hurt man. And then his wife looks like she's betraying him with this American church.
Yeah, and these male missionaries, I'm assuming, and it might be perceived as emasculating a little bit.
Yeah, he was definitely, emasculation is the right word for how he felt. I'm certain of it.
Okay, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. So he forbade your mom, but she got baptized anyway?
Yep.
And, but he wouldn't let you get baptized, is that right?
So, yeah.
You wanted to get baptized at 10?
I think so. I think I didn't really, at the time I couldn't process it very deeply. I didn't have like full understanding of what exactly my mom was getting into, but it seemed good. Like I didn't feel bad about it. And I knew that my dad was wrong in the situation with my mom. I just knew that he was right not to follow the religion, but the way he was approaching the question of dealing with it was wrong. And so for me, I might not necessarily have wanted to get baptized in the church because I believed in it, but because I saw that my mom is in the right and she's getting baptized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you did not get baptized at 10.
No. So the church was missionaries and were very clear that you can't get baptized until you're 18 years old if one of your parents does not permit you to do it.
Okay. And your dad wasn't okay with it.
Oh, no.
So, but you wanted to?
Yeah, I would have done it.
And your sisters?
So, no. My younger sister was just too little. Mm-hmm. And then my older sister, she took her time deciding. I don't think she was ready at the time. I don't know. I'm not,
okay, that's fine.
I'm not too sure.
So what do you remember? Was it a branch that you would have been a member of? Right.
So I think my mom was like number 9 baptized person in the city. And I remember a couple times we went and we met at a movie theater, like a screen, right? Like this whole thing. And we were like, the sacrament was in the first couple rows. And then for Sunday school, we would break up and go to like different rows, go like to the back and like do our little lesson. And I remember they tried to do, what is it called, the little kids?
Primary?
Primary, yeah. They tried to do primary. It was me and another girl. I think it was Christina was her name. And it was me and her and one lady talking to us in the back of the movie theater.
Okay.
That's what it looked like. And it was fun. And then very quickly we moved, missionaries were renting a technical institute place. We rented like an entire floor. So we did sacrament again in like this big auditorium that kind of looked like a movie theater with a stage, right? And then we did lessons and classes on the same floor. It was very, very few people.
Do you remember, did you learn like primary songs? Like,
Nope.
You didn't learn primary songs?
Nope.
Okay.
I think I attended primary like a couple times.
Okay.
And that was it. I think they couldn't really do primary because, I mean, there was just a couple of kids. It was not, yeah. A lot of the usual organizations you would do.
Like youth groups?
Yeah, that was not very prominent in my life. Yeah.
So church was like pretty much kind of the equivalent of sacrament meeting in a very small branch, basically?
Yeah. And we did.
Speakers and pass the sacrament.
Yeah, we did that.
You sang?
We did sing.
Okay.
The first time I took the sacrament, the bread is the first. Mm-hmm. So I took the bread and then I freaked out that my mom didn't take the sacrament. So I didn't touch the water. Mm. And then one of the people who was passing the sacrament stood up and was like, if you're taking the sacrament, you should do all of it, not just like part of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. What was I doing? Yeah.
Do you remember hymns? Were there hymns you liked?
Yeah, we had a hymn book that was like this neutral, I guess, like skin color with like purple decoration on it, and it was spiral. Mm-hmm. Binding, yeah. It was like very small. I think maybe there was like 30 hymns in it.
And it would have been in Ukrainian, not Russian.
Oh, good question. Actually, I think it was in Russian, yeah.
But you were bilingual, fully bilingual in both?
Absolutely.
So you could go back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you remember any of those songs? Like, was there Come Come Ye Saints?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if I saw it or somebody started singing or if I heard it, I would recognize it and I probably could sing along a little bit.
But there's no, like, I can remember Spanish hymns from my mission. Like, do you have memories of, like, certain Mormon hymns that really stuck with you as a teenager, or did they not ever really stick with you?
There are. Let me think. Wow, no.
Okay, no, that's fine. Hymns are a big part of my experience, so that's why I asked.
Well, people ask me, like, what kind of music do you like? And I'm not very specific because I'm not somebody who turns on the music while I'm cooking or while I'm cleaning. I don't turn to music, so I think maybe that's why I don't have like a very bright recollection of the hymns.
So what did the church mean to you in your early teen to adolescent years? Did it mean anything to you? Was it?
Okay, yeah. So this is tricky because I am sure that it meant something else to me in the moment. But now I have memories and I have analyzed situations. So I probably will say something that may have not been exactly true at the time.
That's how memory works.
Right. So I'm sure I'd like put, yeah. But I was thinking, and I thought that the church was, in a way, like a getaway from a very toxic household environment. I could go to different like FHE events, or on Saturdays we had like English classes in our ward, and like, I mean, obviously the church on Sunday, so I could always like leave and enjoy a moment without being called names or feel threatened. And then also there's a big allegiance to my mom and also my older sister who was going. So I think that's how I thought of the church at the time. That's what it was, like allegiance and a getaway.
Okay. And the actual teachings about Jesus and the atonement, or Joseph Smith, the prophet, or was that, or a belief in the afterlife and eternal families, or the word of wisdom, or whatever, law of chastity, like what, were any of those teachings a really important part of your kind of, thought process or sense of the world?
Right.
Did you have a testimony in those teen years? And if so, what was it on?
So I was a blank page. Right. So finding out about the church, I didn't really know anything about religion, period. But also at the same time, Ukrainians, very traditional people. Like I always knew that marriage is for a woman and a man. And when you find somebody you love, you get married and then you have kids. Like it was very traditional because of where I come from. And there's no talk about like LGBTQ. Like I didn't know gay people existed until I was like 16 years old. So yeah, it was just very traditional. And I think it was very easy for me to adopt a lot of the teaching of the church because it made total sense from what I saw around me and what I was taught by my parents. Did I ever have a testimony in Book of Mormon? Nope, never.
Did you pray to God?
I did.
Did you feel like God answered your prayers?
Nope. No,
did you wonder about that? Or was it just you did prayers because that's what you do?
I wondered why I didn't get any revelations or like any specific feelings. But not too much.
Okay.
I think I just looked at the church as overall, it seems to be like a good message in general. And so whatever, it's fine.
Was it like Jesus died for me and I've made sins, but Jesus has made it better? That kind of, did you ever have that?
I think I did have that. I think if any of part of me was converted to anything was this idea of Jesus for sure.
What about him?
Like the whole shebang, the whole routine of like he actually came and he actually did die on a cross and he did exactly what the Bible says he did, and then he definitely went to the Americas and he definitely like introduced himself to people here, and yeah, I thought all of that was real. So I bought into that story for sure, and it's a great story. It is really nice. So it's nice to think that there's somebody out there beyond this world that cares about you. And this is interesting, like I always thought that I am not just this body. And I think the part of like us being eternal beings and us having a life and like connecting our ancestors and having a connection with them now, all of this made sense to me. Because even when I was like, I think I was like 9 years old, I had an out-of-body experience. So I knew like I was certain that I wasn't just this thing, there's something else. Yeah, so it made sense. And I think I had a testimony of like, I am a daughter of God, and God is whatever the Mormon Church says he is or it is. Yeah.
What'd you think about Joseph Smith growing up?
Nothing. Never had a confirmation of him particularly. I think I had the same feeling about him as the Book of Mormon. Is it just kind of like, okay, this is a part of a big picture. I don't necessarily have an answer about the specific thing, but I accept it as a part of the whole. Yeah.
And who was the prophet of your teen years? Do you remember?
Hinckley.
Okay. Do you remember having thoughts or feelings about him at all? Or?
Oh, I loved him. I thought he was just like this nice guy. And I remember like watching Conference.
You would watch Conference?
Yeah, I remember watching Conference. And yeah, he just seemed like this really nice guy who meant well. And there's no reason not to believe that what he was saying was true, right? And yeah, so I had a good feeling about him for sure. I thought he was the real deal.
And what did you think about being part of an American-based church as a Ukrainian? Was that awesome? Was it neutral? Did you even think about that? Did you think of it as a American church?
I did. I did think about that as, I considered it. So I think because of how my mother joined it, she never talked about it as an American church. So I adopted her view as this is a worldwide religion. However, I definitely saw that other people were talking, like you could hear it in the streets if you're walking with the missionaries and somebody's screaming like, go back to America. Or you go to a discussion and people you're discussing with are saying, oh, like we're kind of worried this is like an American church and, you know, like this is weird. But I don't think I ever thought about it that way, even though I was fully aware and I understood why other people thought that. And missionaries, I mean, this is kind of a question to more like the missionary effort and elders. But there were times where I noticed that, especially when a missionary is new in the field, they did sometimes come in with an attitude of a bearer of civilization versus a bearer of a gospel.
What do you mean?
Oh, like I'm coming to preach to indigenous people. I'm going to make their lives better and, you know, and convert them to this new civilization. That I definitely saw that more than once. I'm not trying to criticize anyone. I totally understand where that comes from and it's not wrong or right. I'm just saying that I did see it and it did sometimes feel like, calm down, like we're a very ancient civilization. I think we're fine. Like you don't need to to judge us and like tell us how to live.
So there's a little bit of kind of imperialism, kind of cultural.
Oh, yeah, definitely saw that.
Okay.
Usually by the end of the mission, it goes away. But it's not rare for somebody who comes from America to go to a foreign country and see themselves as a white savior. They might not think they are, but they definitely behave that way.
Okay. So more and more, I think the church is kind of in some countries being put into the cult category along with like Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientologists. Was Mormonism perceived as a cult by fellow Ukrainians as much as you remember? I
think so, yes. My dad's starting. Like he definitely thought it was a cult. And I saw that that's how people perceived it a lot. Yeah. Okay. And
did people look down on you? Did you lose friends? You know, did it affect you socially?
No, I was a very shy, conservative person. I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I didn't feel that I needed to have a lot of friends. I was very comfortable in my own head. I've lived in my own head as a child, a lot. So did I lose any friends over being Mormon? No. I actually remember one time some of my classmates came over to my place. I think we were skipping school. And so they came over and I was showing some pictures. We had these big albums. And they were like, oh, you're Mormon. I said, yeah. And they looked at me with curiosity and they never stopped talking to me and then never made me feel bad about it. There was never any comments. at some point there was a boy from my class who came to English lessons on Saturdays with the Missionaries, and I saw him and his dad, and he was one of the bullies in the class. And I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to bully me over this. And he didn't. It was completely the other way around. After he saw me there, he stopped bullying me, which was very nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Did you have heroes growing up or like dreams for yourself as to, who inspired you or what you wanted to be or do?
Did I have heroes? That's an interesting question. I don't know. I was painfully aware of being unaware. That doesn't make any sense. However.
What do you mean?
I read a lot. I wrote a lot. I had a journal since I was 10 years old.
What types of authors did you enjoy as a teen? Any authors we'd know or?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Just fiction?
Actually, no, that's not true. I can't think of one. Tolkien. I read Lord of the Rings 5 times back to back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got more out of the Lord of the Rings than I ever got out of the Book of Mormon. 100%. Like, it was an amazing. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite character?
Probably Aragorn. Yeah.
Nice.
I love him. He's great. Super sexy man running around.
Strider?
Saving. That's what you call. I never read the books.
Oh, you read in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I never read those books in English.
Got
I
it.
don't know.
Okay.
I'm saying Aragorn. I'm thinking, is that right? I don't know if that's right.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love those kind of books.
Okay.
And I love like Shevchenko. People would know who that is. Like all of his stories. A lot of historical novels that I read, like Bulgakov, Master and Margarita, like the book that blew my mind, and to this day I think is like the best book ever written. So,
did you have dreams for yourself? Was it the typical Mormon dream? I want to go to BYU. I want to get married in the temple. I want to have lots of kids and stay home.
Oh, thank you for helping me out, because I was like, I can't think of anything. No, I took my time getting my dreams. Around 16, I think that's when the first time I thought, okay, I would like to go to BYU. However, never had any thoughts about marriage. I never thought that was a thing. Didn't really care or consider myself like, oh, I would love to be a mom. Like, none of that ever crossed my mind.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think 16 was probably the first time that I was like, okay, maybe I would like to go to BYU and get an education. And at the same time, I had no idea what kind of education I would like to get, because I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I have always been, and to this day, I'm the person who I love so many different things. I'm deeply interested in a lot of things. So it's very hard to decide like what's the next topic I'm going to learn about.
Sure.
Yeah.
So did you think of your Ukrainian branch as like family? Was it like a really important, where the leaders were like important leaders in your life, and this is your family away from family, and it's where you felt at home? Was it like a really important part of your life? Do you think of it that way? Or just something you went to as part of your weekly routine? It
was a good routine. I looked up to some people. I looked up to the lady who was in charge of our choir. She was an amazing lady. My mom. Maybe for a while our bishop. Growing up, we had our bishop was, I think he was a bishop for like 8 years.
It became a ward at some point, from a branch to a ward?
Oh, yeah. We actually got a building, our own building, pretty quickly. Well, I actually have it written, like when we got it. I think it was like 2001. Yes, 2001. So we didn't have to rent other institutions for a very long time. We hit pretty strong growth for a while, and I think that was flagged as like they need a building. So we got a building, And then were stagnated growth for a while. And when we got a building, I think about 45 to 50 people would show up every Sunday. And my brightest memories are like of that church building. And our church building is very new. It was built in like a very modern way. It's very white walls, white floors, lots of light, beautiful hallway. So I have a very different like idea of what the church looks like, Mormon church looks like, than here. Like here, I feel like everything is kind of dark and like brownish, but in Ukraine, our building was very white.
Okay.
So that was really beautiful. And I remember, I think the reason I didn't get the feeling of super close family is because I saw a lot of conflict. And the conflict came from the word being very new, people not really knowing how to fit this new religion into their lives and trying to figure things out. And then these young kids are trying to tell you how to do it. There's just a lot of fitting puzzle situation, and there's a lot of conflict came out of it. And so I kind of did not have a lot of people that I really looked up to because I knew who they really were. And it wasn't always pretty. Good people, fantastic people. But, the process of getting your life, your reality, your background, combine with this new religion, and so few of us believe in it. Like you're such an outsider. I think that it's just a perfect ground for conflict, and that happened a lot.
Okay, so not an amazing experience in the ward growing up.
No.
Okay.
No, and I don't like when people tell me what to do. And so I never went to the bishop to talk and like confess my sins. I was just like, come on. No.
You didn't buy into that?
No, I think I went once because I was kind of like more forced into it. And I just showed up and I was like, okay, here's a list. What are you going to tell me? He's like, cool, thanks, you're fine, bye.
Oh, that's good.
I was out of there. Yeah.
So there wasn't like youth dances or stake dances or ward dances, or were there?
We had a lot of activities. My mom was in charge, and like other people, we loved to like make like little word things, and we still tried to celebrate like Ukrainian traditions and incorporate them, like our national holidays, and we try to celebrate everything, American, Ukrainian, whatever we could get our hands on, we did it. Like my first time celebrating Halloween was at a church. So I attended a ton of events, and we were trying to be as active as we could. And like I have really fun memories. Like one of the winters, the snow. We had so much snow at the time. I think it reached like about my chest, and we dug tunnels and were playing frisbee, running through the tunnels and throwing to each other. So we did stuff like that. Like we just had so much fun. Yeah.
But no dances, or were there dances?
I think we had a few, but okay, this is what we did, because there's like the wards or branches are so tiny. What stakes and, missions. For us then, it was a mission. We didn't have stakes. Like the mission president was actually our stake president. We would actually all combine like the whole country, the youth from the whole country, or even like Russia. We would all like decide on a location and time and go to a conference for like 3 or 4 days.
It's like a youth conference.
Yeah, and we did those a lot. And that's where we would have our dances and speakers and like this very immersive experience of where you are like all living in the dorm and like every day have a schedule. And that was really fun. We did that.
This is a total side question. If Ukraine were a state, what size equivalent, which of the U.S. states?
Texas.
So, okay. So Ukraine's about the size of Texas. So that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's close enough to Russia that you would have combined activities with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have asked you this earlier. Why didn't your mom just join the Orthodox Church? Why did she want to be Mormon and not Orthodox Christian? Did she ever tell you?
Wow, I'm a bad daughter.
No, that's okay.
I have no idea.
You don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just like she was really converted to the gospel in
Just
general.
to the teachings.
I need to go back and ask her.
Okay. Well, let us know.
Yeah.
So, any other important memories about the church before you turn 18? I guess we could talk about your baptism.
Yeah, actually, so my mom gets baptized in March 23rd, and then she immediately, like in September, becomes the teacher of Institute of Religion.
Oh.
And the crazy thing about that is my mom had never read the Bible before, literally never opened the book. Like the moment she gets called, she's like, oh, great. And it's the Old Testament. And so she has to prepare for a lesson. And I was helping her. We had, she had like papers that she like had like, I think scriptures written on them. And like she had it was an 1.5 hour lesson. So that's a long lesson. It was a lot of pressure on her. And so she ended up teaching Institute of Religion for about like 17 years, I think.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot very quickly. Now I think about it, like if I never read Bible and somebody told me like, oh, like would you like to be a teacher? That's a level of insanity that's very difficult for me to comprehend right now. And she did it, and she did it really well. She was incredible, and she still is incredible at teaching. So that's one of the memories that I have is I remember walking with her to her first lesson. I'm pretty sure it was a Saturday during the day. And I think there was about 10 maybe people who showed up, and us walking and her telling me how like nervous she is and why, and me like supporting her, telling her like, Mom, like you're going to do great. Like you're really ready. I know you're ready. Like I saw you prepare. We had this whole talk, like I was her like little support system. And I attended Institute with her because I was supporting her, even though age-wise I had no business being there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in connection with your baptism. So how did that connect?
Well, this is kind of like more of my really cool memory before the baptism is that I ended up doing a lot of things and having access to a lot of things like Institute and youth conferences, even though I was too young because the branch was small, the church was new, there's not enough people anyway. And so I kind of got into all these, like I went to youth events, FHEs when I was so little, and there's a bunch of 20-year-olds and me.
Okay.
Right. So like I ended up having this access, and I felt like I belonged there because I had no interest in being with my peers. I was more interested in the grown-up crowd. So yeah, my baptism, 18 years old, I don't know if my parents know this or my siblings know this, but a few days before my baptism, I had a best friend from high school. And I got graduated at 16, so this was 2 years after my graduation. I called her and I said, look, I'm getting baptized in a few days. Do you want to go get drunk? Because this is it. So she grabbed a bottle of wine, and her and I went in the park and drank the bottle of wine and had a good old time. It was super fun. Yeah. And then a few days later, I went and got baptized. It was very underwhelming.
Oh, so
Yeah.
would you have drank every once in a while growing up as a teen then?
So yeah, the first time I drank, probably 11 years old, 12 years old. I don't remember knowing anything about age and drinking alcohol. I didn't know if my country has like that age, 21 years old or whatever it was.
Right.
Didn't know there was such a thing. My first time getting completely wasted was probably 13. Just crashing weddings of friends of friends, and yeah, I definitely had a lot of parties, a lot of times that I was drunk way before I was like 16, 18 years old.
So you would have just been kind of a normal Ukrainian teenager in that way. You just would have drank whenever kids your age drank, basically?
Yeah. I didn't actually drink during the school year. It's not like I loved alcohol and like, oh my gosh, like for me, because alcohol was allowed, it wasn't exciting. That I didn't drink for the sake of alcohol. I didn't drink for the sake of social connection. I drank when I went to my village and I had like my set of friends and we were partying, and you just kind of loosen up and have fun and go dancing, like that kind of thing. Or you crash a wedding and like there's a lot of alcohol at a wedding and that's what you do. So
Did you have any guilt doing that, even though you were going to church? So you had no guilt?
None
But
whatsoever.
But you knew you had to stop once you got baptized?
I did know that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the missionaries talked to you about the law of chastity and stuff. Were you okay with that? Was that a problem? Were you worried about having to follow that or not?
Wasn't worried. Was it okay? So chastity is an interesting topic for me because I remember being told like, oh, masturbation is not good, and being like, I don't think so. Like that, I don't subscribe to that at all.
In other words, it was good. You thought it was good.
Yeah, I thought it was necessary. I thought it was important, and I thought sexuality shouldn't be suppressed. I thought that like I always knew like I have these parts because God created me this way. I'm going to love myself, and I'm definitely going to explore. I definitely need to find out. My mom was really good at this. She gave me lots of books with pictures and would like explain things to me. And she was very open talking about sex and sexual experiences. So by the time I was getting baptized, I had no reservations about sex. And so I didn't really subscribe to chastity the way it's taught by missionaries, or even right now at church, where it's like, do it or don't do it, and only do it if you're married. And let's not talk about this because like we can't say the word vagina, right? Like none of that was part of my history. So I think I understood that chastity may be important in the sense of like, maybe respecting yourself and respecting your choices that you make, and like with partners, and maybe like staying away from diseases. That's kind of what I thought about like chastity was, but not necessarily like don't ever have sex,
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you got baptized, you weren't thinking that was going to be a big change for you in your life, really, in that way?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything else about your church experiences in the Ukraine or your life experiences in Ukraine before you came here?
Yeah, so I went on a mini mission, which I have noticed in America, people don't often know what that means. So we had some Ukrainian or Russian speaking elders and sisters in Ukraine, but most of the time we had to have missionaries from America. And, we're all paired. So if there's not enough people, sometimes they would call a local member to substitute for a transfer or two. So that's what happened. I went to Kharkiv, which is north of Mariupol. I think it was like an 18-hour train ride, maybe less. And I was with a girl from Bulgaria, and I did this mini mission. I'm pretty sure it was a whole transfer. That's, I think, if my memory's not lying to me.
Like a month?
Month and a half.
Okay.
And that was super fun. I showed up not knowing very much about the Book of Mormon. I think I read it once, cover to cover by then.
In Russian or Ukrainian?
Russian.
Okay.
Was it Russian? Yes, I think it was in Russian that I read it. And I was very shaky in the gospel. I remember not knowing anything and just being like, oh, hey, like I'm here. Like, this is so great. Like, I'm so excited. And I had a name tag, which was very unique for a mini missionary, but I got one from my sister who served a mission. So obviously the same last name. So I was really cool. I had my own tag and I had a good old time. The girl that I ended up serving with was fantastic. Love her so much. She's a really good person. And it was a really good experience for me, I think, again, because I was escaping life at home. And it was fun being introduced to what the day-to-day looked like for missionaries. It was a lot of very crappy, sugary food. I gained a lot of weight very quickly. And I had a lot of respect because it was a lonely, lonely job. Yeah.
Okay. Did you gain a stronger testimony on your mini mission?
I think I left with feeling like, oh, the Book of Mormon is super great.
Oh.
Yeah, I left with that. I was teaching one of the lessons, and I just had that burning in the bosom feeling, and I just thought, oh, this is it. That might be it. Which even as I left, I thought, no, that wasn't exactly the answer, but it was like the closest I ever got.
Okay. And how old were you on your mini mission?
I'm pretty sure it was 19, but I could possibly be 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you guys have the equivalent of high school there?
Yeah.
What age would you have graduated from the equivalent of high school there?
16.
Okay. And then you go on to what?
University right away.
So you went to university.
I
Which
did.
university?
Oy. Man, what's the name of it? It was this university of the city. What's the name of it exactly? I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so you go to some...
So 16, I graduated like in June, July. Within a month, I was admitted to university, and I started like in September 1st. And I went for 2 years. So by the end of I was 18, I was already like 2 years into universities.
And you said you studied linguistics?
I did.
What did that mean?
So Ukrainian and English linguistics, so it was a double major. And that meant that I was studying a lot of history, a lot of art, and everything that had to do with how language is formed, like history of language and why certain sounds become certain letters. How did they become those letters, and how to look at a word and be able to tell where each little part comes from. Yeah, a lot of stuff like that. And I learned like Polish and Italian and German. I mean, it was so much work. It was really difficult and really, really fun.
Okay, you liked it.
Loved it, yeah.
Is there anything you want to say about your dad? It sounds like the sense I get is that he was abusive in some way. And I don't want to pry or dig into that any more than you think would be helpful or useful. But is there anything you want to say about that? Or not?
Sure, I don't mind. He was emotionally very abusive person. His way or highway. Okay, so I have a very different experience of my father than my sisters do. We both have, I'm in the middle. There's 5 years apart. So I ended up getting the worst of it because these were my formative years, 10 to 18. I didn't have the opportunity to leave like my older sister did. She went on a mission and she could get jobs. For me, I was still in school. I had to come home. And I was kind of stuck in my own circles, right? And then my little sister was just too little, so she was kind of spared a lot of this stuff. I think she just recently started realizing what happened and she's in shock. But I got the worst of it, and I saw him beat my mom and he beat me. And coming home was a lot of tension, and you kind of immediately went like this, oh, I'm home. What am I about to hear in this moment? What's next thing? And it was a lot of swear words, at least to me, oh, you Mormon pig, and, all of that kind of stuff. So it was mentally a very, very horrific. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. We actually, now I sometimes talk to him, and he's visited America twice. So, and he apologized without apologizing. My dad, he doesn't apologize, but he's kind of acting differently. So that's kind of his way of apologizing. Yeah, he's changed. He's changed a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry for that abuse.
Yeah, there's a lot of trauma that is still yet to be uncovered. So my future boyfriend, I apologize for that, but we can get through it.